7:32, and more than 20 states nationwide have laws now restricting transgender girls in sports. Earlier this week, Olympic gold medalist Caitlyn Jenner visited Nassau County to express her support for a transgender ban signed by County Executive Bruce Blakeman there last month.
The difference between men and women exists based on DNA, or your chromosomes, which leads to our physical development, regardless of a trans person's hormones, surgeries, status in transition. There are massive advantages and undeniable differences from male development.
Well, the debate is now playing out in New York City, where the school board for District 2 on Manhattan's Upper East Side want education officials to look into changing gender guidelines. So joining us this morning is Dr. Gloria Pope, who works with trans individuals every day at the nonprofit group Destination Tomorrow, which is in the Bronx. So good morning, Dr. Pope, and thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
So let's talk about Wednesday night's vote
Yes.
at the District 2 Education Council. I mean, there are a ton of parents there fighting against this resolution, but it still passed,
Yes.
right? A vote of 8 to 3, I believe.
Yes.
So were you surprised by that vote at all?
Actually, I was very surprised. Being a New Yorker and just being a blue state, to see that type of legislation pass through New York was really surprising at this point in time, especially in this particular climate.
Do you think there are going to be more councils like the other districts doing the same?
Well, unfortunately, we know that transphobia is a big thing. So unfortunately, I see that some more school districts might align with this type of legislation, but we're here at Destination Tomorrow to actually talk about how this can actually affect our communities.
So the resolution and part of that vote called for a panel of experts to recommend changes to the Department of Education's gender guidelines. Can you walk us through what the guidelines are now and then what they could possibly change to?
Okay, so potentially the simplest way to look at it is that New York City was a safe place for trans community, right? Especially our youth. They really focus on making sure our youth are able to identify about who they are and what they want to identify with.
Yeah.
So those particular guidelines were put in place to ensure that in a school setting, they're allowed to express themselves and exist with regular students, or actually I should say with students they align with.
And so the changes would take that away?
Potentially, yes. It can be harmful, especially to the social emotional well-being of youth within school districts and communities, because now you're sitting there identifying and separating them even further as they're already separated as being trans, how they have to identify. So social emotionally, this is not a good look for our trans kids.
So what was your reaction when you saw Caitlyn Jenner come out and express her stance on this whole issue?
Well, my reaction is, for me, Caitlyn Jenner's not a scientist, and neither am I. Right, so what I would do is I've really aligned our organization aligns with the concept that we want to make sure that trans kids are definitely supported within school districts, that they are able to have access to the same thing that all the children have access to, right? We want to make sure that social emotionally they're being supported on a day-to-day basis. And when we're talking about gender markers and how they identify and the chromosomes and the science behind it, we're not scientists, so it's not for us necessarily to say.
She might say, though, well, I'm an athlete, so I can relate, I understand the differences and the strengths from somebody who identifies that way that may have been born a male. So how would you respond to her if she said something like that, which is basically what she has been saying?
She did say. I mean, she was talking about miles per hour and speeds of volleyball spikes and pitches and things like that.
Yes, yes, but some of the fastest people in this world are black women. So how can we clearly say that just because someone has born a particular way, has particular chromosomes, is going to definitely define how they're going to perform athletically? Again, we're not scientists. So we really just make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of our kids.
So where do you see this going, right? Because New York has one of the highest populations of trans youth in the country, right?
Yes.
And so there are some ramifications here that could really play out if this goes down the line, more school boards adopt it. Where do you see this going in terms of ramifications for trans youth, specifically those who will look to play sports?
Well, definitely, you know, just in general for our trans youth, Destination Tomorrow was created back in 2009, right? And the base of it, as our founder, Sean Coleman, was really to make sure that in the LGBTQ community, we were focusing on the needs of our trans community, specifically our trans youth here in New York. We've had kids from the world that travel just to be here in New York City because they feel this was a safe place for them to be them. And these types of legislations, unfortunately, shifts that narrative, and it allows for space for transphobia. So we just want to make sure that we are holding back and maintaining our human rights, especially here in New York State.
What's interesting is, you know, the question was asked to the county executive in Nassau County, and I think it was asked on the Upper East Side as well, you know, how many trans students are actually playing in the sports that they want to change? There really wasn't a number. So is this something you're actually seeing play out on fields here locally? Or is it, as the county executive said, a preventative measure down the line?
For me, honestly, I was thinking about that same exact thought about what is the research that actually aligns to say how many trans students are actually participating in these sports. But what the fact is that we don't necessarily know. The research is not necessarily there. But but with Destination Tomorrow, what we are definitely is just focused on is just making sure that we're just not allowing the rollback of rights.
Yeah.
And that's just the point.
Have you had any students or children or parents, families talk to you about their concerns?
Not at this point.
Okay.
Not at this point, especially not in the Bronx. We are still standing strong in the Bronx. Our kids are happy, right?
That's
we
great.
have our kids who are coming to us for other concerns, including which is the being unhoused and unclothed, and also just because we run a large amount of education programs at Destination Tomorrow. Because even for trans youth in schools, unfortunately, 90% of our population comes in without a high school diploma, and they come in because they weren't comfortable in the school setting. So these types of guidelines is what some of the things that support them to make sure they can even finish school.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about what's happening next week. March 31st is Transgender Visibility Day.
Yes.
Happens to fall on Easter.
Yes.
So what's being planned for that?
So, Destination Tomorrow, we're a national organization. We have a lot of events that's going to be happening, definitely between here, D.C., and Atlanta in our offices. So we're just really excited to make sure we're bringing light to what's the trans issues that currently exist within our communities. And we have parties and events and some movie screenings and large cookouts. So we're going to be having a great time during that day.
Wow. Well, your smile and your
Yes.
energy certainly shows your excitement for this.
Oh, I'm
activity
definitely
and the work that
excited.
you do. Wonderful work that you do.
Yes,
And
thank
we
you.
appreciate taking the time to talk to us this morning.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
All right.